Recently, Apple launched the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 16 Pro, and while I think that they're wonderful phones, I actually want to talk about the iPhone 15 Pro and why I'll be skipping the iPhone 16. So, Siri, let's get this video started. Alright, so I realized that I'm not the target audience for the iPhone 16 and the 16 Pro. Yearly upgrades for phones aren't a thing that people do anymore, and in fact, I actually made the conscious decision to go with the iPhone 15 Pro, knowing full well in 2 months' time that there'd be a brand new iPhone. I owned an iPhone 15 before this. I was fortunate to be able to upgrade, and the main reason was because I got a 256GB version for £200 less than retail. I knew I wouldn't be able to get this kind of a deal with the new one, and then in my entire time of owning an iPhone, I've never owned a Pro model, so I figured that this was the time to make the jump. I went in thinking that the 15 Pro isn't going to be any different to the iPhone 15. I was pleasantly surprised with how much the 15 Pro had to offer, and I figured I'd make a video talking about my experience using the iPhone 15 Pro over the last 2 months and what Apple Intelligence means for the future of this phone. Alright, so let's start off with the design. The 15 Pro is one gorgeous phone, especially the natural titanium colorway. It has a similar feel in hand to the 15 and is built beautifully. It's slightly smaller than the 15 and it feels heftier thanks to, you guessed it, the natural titanium build, which adds to that premium feel. I've swapped cases on this thing like a million times, like on and off. I love cycling through cases. I love just seeing the phone for what it is. And the rails seem to be holding up absolutely fine. I love the brushed metal look, and it's a nice departure from the bead blasted matte aluminum finish that we've all gotten used to. It can be a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but if you keep your hands clean, for the most part, this really isn't an issue. Now let me quickly talk to you guys about the action button. It's actually been quite nice being able to program it to do whatever you want. I have mine to quickly open the camera app, and it works as a shutter button in the app too. Even the UI for changing the action button is actually super cool. It's funny because there's no other page in settings that looks like the page for the action button's settings. I don't really miss the mute switch in that sense. You can access the mute option in Control Center, and I always keep my phone on silent most of the time anyway. My watch notifies me of the important things that I need to know. The camera system on the back is bigger than anything I've ever used before, and with the case on, this protrusion isn't a problem either. Now let's talk about the display, because I was actually pleasantly surprised that this is a much better panel in 2 ways compared to the 15. This panel is amazing, especially if you're coming from an iPhone 11 or a non-Pro iPhone. The jump from LCD to OLED is crazy. It's like seeing with new eyes. Blacks aren't gray anymore, and the 120Hz refresh rate is actually really good. I used to be a doubter for 120Hz. I didn't think it was necessary on phones. I was okay with 60Hz, but now that I've used 120Hz, oh, come on, there's no going back. It feels superior in so many ways, but I'll tell you what really made the difference for me. I read a lot of Twitter and articles and stuff like that, and so the fast refresh rate made it easier to be able to see the text moving by as I scrolled, which made it a lot easier to read because I'm like read scrolling. So yeah, it was much better than a 60Hz screen. And honestly, it's kind of criminal that the regular iPhones only ship with 60Hz. Even the regular iPhone 16 still doesn't have 120Hz or the always-on display. If you're coming from any older iPhone, you'll notice the increase in brightness makes it so that you can read your iPhone under any kind of sunlight. Also, I really do love the always-on display. Having your phone screen always on for a quick glance at the time or just seeing a not blank screen is super neat. And I'm one of those people that's super mindful about how modern technology is super distracting. And I've made sure to limit the things that show up on my screen during the always on mode, so I'm not always distracted with incoming notifications and alerts that really don't need my attention. But yeah, one of the main reasons I love the always on display mode is for standby mode. When I'm working, I've got this nice clock calendar combo going, and it just makes it easier to stay on top of both the time as well as events that I've got going on in the day. And of course, since this is an HDR display, content looks wonderful. Super vibrant colors, deep dark blacks, and a crispy panel make for amazing viewing, whether it's casual YouTube content or high quality cinema and TV. Now before we move on to talking about the cameras, I actually wanted to talk to you guys about what cases I use for this phone. I'm not a fan of thick, bulky cases or, your regular generic cases. I just think that they add a little bit too much bulk and weight to the phone, and I hate them. And when I bought this phone in London, I actually found this brand called Pitaka, and they make these super slim but protective aramid fiber cases for the iPhone. And yeah, I put it on my phone and I bought it instantly. It was expensive, but it was so worth the purchase. I reached out to to them recently, telling them that I love their cases, and they were actually kind enough to send me another case, as well as this cool MagSafe ring that you can attach on the back of it. I've got a MagSafe stand holding my phone up at the moment, so this isn't on there, but otherwise this thing is always on the back of my phone. I found it useful for propping up my phone slightly or just gripping it better. The aramid fiber pattern is super neat, and I really like how it looks. It's like a carbon fiber look, and it looks super high tech and super fancy at the same time. The case is also super well built and comes with MagSafe inbuilt. It's got this really cool technology that they have to fuse the aramid fiber with magnets, so there's no glue or fear of the magnets falling out. They're just part of the case, and MagSafe works really well. And Pitaka also seem like they really care about the environment. Even though this is a sponsored segment, if you're like me and you don't like thick cases, but also want some kind of minimal case or protection on your phone, I can't recommend anything but this one. And if you'd like to pick it up as well, I've got a link down in the description below, so check that out. And yeah, thank you Pitaka for sending over the cases. Let's talk about the cameras. During my most extensive period of testing this phone, which was when I bought it and I was on my trip in London, I shot almost around 2,000 to 2,500 photos and videos. I love this camera. I haven't been touching my Sony a6400 at all. It's actually sitting right there behind the phone. I've just been using the 15 Pro exclusively for all my camera needs. Among the reasons I wanted to upgrade was the improvements in the ultra-wide, ProRAW, but mainly ProRes log. I'm not much of a spec person, but I'll quickly run over the camera system specs. We've got a 48 megapixel f1.78 main camera lens, an f2.2 12 megapixel ultra wide, and an f2.4 3x optical zoom lens. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the ultra-wide also doubles as a macro photography lens. Super cool coming from one of the older regular iPhones where there's no autofocus in the ultra-wide, and the ultra-wide's performance in low light is subpar at best. I love that the main camera shoots in 24 megapixels, combining the resolution of the 48 megapixel image and the light data from the 12 megapixel image. I don't take many 48 megapixel photos unless I really need to capture every detail in my shot, like this one. And more than me going on and on about the camera, why don't you take a look at a few photos for yourself? Photos come out amazing. They've got rich color detail and lots of dynamic range, and overall the image quality is great. But yeah, video off this phone is amazing. The seamless camera zoom and the rock solid stabilization make for some great shots. I've showed you some samples of photo and video, but focusing on video, the video that you're watching right now is actually shot on the iPhone 15 Pro. I'm actually filming this thing in the Kino app. I don't have the storage space to record 4K ProRes, so I'm actually trying out ProRes in regular HEVC. I've been experimenting with it quite a bit. My latest PC video was shot in ProRes on the iPhone, and I think it looks great. It's just I need to learn how to work the iPhone's color profile compared to my Sony. Of course, the quality of what HEVC offers is nowhere close to what ProRes does, but at least I'll get to grade my iPhone footage and I won't have to lug my camera around everywhere should I need to record something that I can work with later in post. Right, so we talked photo and video, and I don't think there's much more to comment on there. Let's move over to performance. Performance has been great too. The A17 Pro flies in everything that you can throw at it. Apps launch quick, and nothing I've done in general use has bogged it down, and it can handle short bursts of semi-decent AAA gaming in iOS 18's game mode before it starts to throttle. And unlike greatly exaggerated reports of overheating or heating on the iPhone 15 Pro, I will say that it does get slightly warmer than previous iPhones that I've used, but nothing that's like deal-breaking or groundbreaking. But yeah, if it was an issue for some people, it does look like Apple has fixed this with the new thermal architecture on the 16 and 16 Pro. I'm not one for Geekbench scores and all that stuff, so you won't be seeing that here, but I can tell you that the phone runs without a hitch. iPhones have been the benchmark for powerful hardware for a long time now, and I don't think it gets better than this. I might be done talking about performance, but there's one feature that the A17 Pro enables that no other iPhone before this will ever get, and it's something that only the A18 has access to: Apple Intelligence. And I think that this is a big deal because this seems like the future of where iPhones are headed in terms of their, intelligence. It's absolutely devastating that the base 15 doesn't get Apple Intelligence, but my main guess is that all these learning models need a little bit more RAM playroom to work with, and considering that the A17 Pro brings 8 gigabytes of RAM to the 15 Pro, that gives it just the same amount of RAM as the 16 and 16 Pro to work with all the Apple Intelligence models and all the stuff that it needs to make sure that it runs right. Because I've been on the iOS 18.1 beta since its launch on the iPhone 15 Pro, and honestly, I've enjoyed every second of it. Siri is a lot smarter than before. She sounds a lot better too. And essentially, you can speak to her regularly for the most part, and she'll understand you and answer correctly. And it's got this cool new glowing aura wrapping itself around the phone screen, like you saw in my intro. And you can now double tap the home bar, and type things to her if you can't speak out loud. The more contextually aware features are coming later this year in the Apple Intelligence release pipeline, which I'll talk about as soon as I'm done talking about what we have right now. Notification summaries are amazing too. It makes it super easy to just catch info at a glance or to just see what you can expect from a conversation before you open it up completely. Even email summary has been super helpful to me. Another genuinely great addition is writing tools. I personally would have benefited more from this if it was released last year because it would have helped me proofread my master's thesis, but oh well. For the small amounts of work that I've put it through, it works great, especially since there's no character limit for text processing. I can process huge notes that I've written, scripts, turn bullet points into whole notes, summarize things, make messages that are friendly, sound professional, and vice versa. Oh, and Apple Intelligence also brings smart replies in the keyboard suggestions spot, and I'm hoping that this expands to third-party apps or just in general with an update in the future. Apple Intelligence also brings the reduce interruptions focus mode to the iPhone. It's an extra focus mode, but basically it's like a do not disturb that only notifies you when it knows that something super important needs to be delivered to your attention ASAP. Otherwise, it stays quiet and puts everything into a summary. There's this super cool cleanup feature in Photos where you can remove objects instantly. The AI already knows what can be removed, and you can draw around objects, select stuff manually, and do whatever you want and get the image result that you want. And it works super great. I've done some quite major changes to Photos actually, and it's made very nice results. Oh yeah, and Siri can also answer questions about your device. So let's say you don't know where to find something in settings, or you just want general help with your iPhone or iPad or whatever Apple device. You can actually ask Siri the question, and with its new Apple knowledge database, it will tell you like, oh, you wanted this setting, it's over here. You want to do this, you can do this. And I think that's super helpful for people who aren't super tech savvy. And now you can record phone calls and make much smarter and better memories in the Photos app. Now, Genmoji, ChatGPT integration, and even better Siri features are on their way later in the year. But at the moment, Apple Intelligence isn't something I'd want to miss out on. Right now, it's the gift that keeps on giving. We've got all these features now, and later this year, we're gonna get more. And probably towards the 3/4 kind of life cycle of iOS 18, we'll be getting even more features, and it's complete rollout for what was announced at WWDC this year. The fact that the 15 Pro would be getting Apple Intelligence as announced in the WWDC keynote kind of cemented my decision further not to go for the 16 Pro, especially after seeing the rumors saying that there's not going to be that much new anyway. So yeah, if I were to make an upgrade, I'd probably do it next year where all the major rumors are, but don't quote me on that. So yeah, now you can see why I didn't opt for the 16 Pro or wait for it. I'm not going to be using 4K 120 FPS. I love log and ProRes on this thing, but there's no way that I'm going to be using it enough. I'm just not that pro, So yeah, while I think that the new phones are great with all the loaded features, especially the capture button, what do they call it? Camera control, I think it is? Yeah, camera control. I think that's super neat, but I don't really need it. I've got the action button for everything that I need my camera to do. And come on, I don't think touching the screen and selecting stuff is that bad. I don't need a button for that. Right, so now let's talk about battery life. Battery life is decent. I'd get a day, the night, and then I'd have to wake up the next morning and charge it with regular to heavy use, which in my opinion is okay. It's about the same as what I was getting on my 15, maybe a little bit longer. Thanks to the always on display, it drains that extra bit of juice. It's a worthy trade-off. I haven't tried switching the always on display off to see what kind of battery gains I get. It's too helpful for me to turn off. I'm gonna leave it there. Fast charging and MagSafe are convenient, and I have no complaints about that either. So yeah, do I feel like I missed out with the 16 Pro? Honestly, I don't. I think that if you get a deal on the iPhone 15 Pro like I did, where you get it for a lot lesser than the actual price, go for it. Because I bought the 256GB version and I've got tons of space, no worries. It's been great. It's safe to say that this is my new favorite iPhone. And it's gonna be super fun to see how this iPhone ages because I think that it's gonna stick around for a long time. I hope you do too by subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button and sharing this video with friends. If you did, I'd be super grateful for that. Me saying this means it's the end of the video. I wanna thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, take care. Peace.